All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope you don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board for the board. We hope that you enjoy. Hi, I'm Julian Gill. Well, someone had to be. As you know, there's a real scary holiday coming up soon, Election Day. So to get you all warmed up for it, we're going to do a Halloween show. Joining me today, Joe. Welcome back. It has been far too long. It's good to see you again. He's People's Elbow on the board. 69th Blizzard, Ken. And the almighty Marcus Almighty, Mark. Good to see you. How's the album coming along?
Excellent. Should be out in, maybe about a month. I'll have it out. CDs and vinyl later to come.
Oh, cool.
So I don't think we've got any really big, urgent headlines going on with Kiss. Obviously, they've got a show coming up Saturday in Connecticut. And then, of course, it is the Creatures of the Sea, Kiss Cruise 694 or whatever. So let's get into our Halloween special. And today we are going to talk about all of the kind of Halloween-y stuff Kiss has done throughout their history. The good, the bad, the ugly, the missed opportunities, the highlights that we all like. And I gotta say, we're gonna start off with the one that probably started off so many fans, with the national exposure that it got when originally broadcast. I think it was on Halloween Eve in 1976. The Paul Lynde Halloween special. And I gotta raise my hands up and say, I just watched this for the first time all the way through yesterday. I've seen, the Kiss clips, many times. I have never sat through the whole show, and I got to tell you, watching Florence Henderson sing is like the anti-Viagra. It just left me in a state of brewer's droop, and I think I was lucky that Pinky Tuscadero was at least on the show to give it a little bit of a lift.
I liked Pinky Tuscadero quite a bit.
Yeah, and come on, I mean, even at that age, Betty White was a hell of a lot more appealing than Florence Henderson to me. So, not thinking of her now. So I want to go back. I want to know, Joe. I'm going to start with you. Did you see this in 1976 when it aired?
Yes, I did. Okay, so I am 52 years old. And I believe I probably read it in the TV Guide that it was coming up. And I became a Kiss fan when I heard it live. So, huge. And then, Mark, when Destroyer came out, I was disappointed. I liked Detroit Rock City. I liked God of Thunder. But it just didn't sound like Kiss. And Beth, I hated. So when this special came on, this is another story, too. It's pretty interesting because my dad had a very good friend who ran the box office at an old theater here called Mill Run. It's closed since, but all the big acts came through. And he knew the scoop on everyone. He knew about Michael Jackson. He knew about Bill Cosby, all that stuff that came out afterwards. And this is back in the early 70s, and he would tell my dad this. So he would, he told him about Paul Lynde being gay. So my dad was so against me watching the Paul Lynde special. But I had to watch it, and Paul Lynde was hilarious. He was great in Hollywood Squares, and I just rewatched the episode, and it was just he was a funny guy. But I watched it. There's some campy bits on there. He did his comedy routine. Pinky Tuscadero for a young lad was very, very exciting. But yeah, when Kiss came on, I thought it was extremely cool. So they played Detroit Rock City. I could tell it wasn't live. It was lip synced, but it was exciting to see them on TV and seeing my band there. Then they go into Beth, and I was like, oh my gosh, and then all the time my dad's giving me a heart. My dad's like, I can't believe you're watching Paul Lynde. What is this garbage? And I'm, because we only had one TV in the house. And then they wound up playing King of the Nighttime World third, and it was a shortened version. And but it was cool. It was cool seeing him on TV. But I wasn't excited. I was actually more excited a year later, or several months later, when they were on Don Kirshner's rock concert and they played the 3 songs off of Rock and Roll Over. I thought that blew my mind a hell of a lot more because Ace Frehley did the one-hand solo and that stuff. So I enjoyed seeing him on Paul Lynde. I was under a lot of stress because my dad was watching it with me and not making it enjoyable. But it was cool seeing him. But I was more blown away when they were on Don Kirshner a couple months later.
I got to say that Paul Lynde is really dated now as a host for me.
Yeah.
He felt very 1970s to me when I watched this. I flash back to 79, early 79 when I first got here, and maybe some of the stuff I saw on TV out then, very much in kind of that mold of things. I mean, about which team he was batting for, I couldn't tell. I kind of liked his self-depreciating humor. And he was pretty good on the deadpan, side of things, which I tried to do a little bit at the top of the show, but obviously I'm no Paul Lynde. Ken, let's talk about your first experience with the Paul Lynde Halloween special when you first saw it, and any highlights on there for you.
Well, I didn't see it when it first came out, so I'm not sure. I know we subscribed to TV Guide, like Joe was talking, and there must have been another show or something, or I had homework. I don't know that didn't let me or become aware of the Paul Lynde, because I like Paul Lynde in general, because I always watched him on the Hollywood Squares, and he's always funny on there. And then I was also aware of course, the what's her name, the Wicked Witch, and then the other witch from H.R. Puffin stuff, Witchy Poo, I guess.
Witchy Poo. And Margaret Hamilton, of course, being the
Margaret
Elizabeth
Hamilton,
witch.
And so I would have been all in on that, just alone on that. And I was not aware of Kiss at the time in '76. I still wasn't. Somehow I didn't become aware of them yet. So it didn't happen. So I watched it, not that long ago. I watched the whole thing through. Like you said, I saw the old clips of Kiss performing on there, but I did not see the whole show until not that long ago, probably last year. And it was interesting, and it's very, like you said, dated and goofy. Florence Henderson, she should just stick to the Brady Bunch. I mean, come on. And so, I enjoyed it for what it was. But again, I didn't see it until just recently. I mean, I would have been, right on board had I known it was out. So I didn't know in '76. So I missed the original airing.
And there's a whole bunch of skits that go throughout this show. I mean, the Kiss part of it, for which it's become a legend, really, is really kind of minor. I mean, obviously, it was their first national kind of, major TV exposure after they'd become famous and made it. Because obviously they'd been on, Dick Clark and all those other shows, performance-wise, earlier on in their career. But here they are. I mean, it's about a minute for the interview with Paul, and they all basically nod their head. The performance of King of the Nighttime World is very abbreviated. Beth is the high point for me. I mean, I just love the camera work on that, and Peter, kind of doing the piano and he does fine on it, and it's just nicely shot. It's kind of romantic. They get the vibe for it. No wonder all the moms were over that song at that time.
Sure.
The two most interesting reveals were, one, Peter Criss could play piano, and two, Gene Simmons said that it wasn't makeup; those were their real faces. So,
yep. And what I do notice on that, I guess we'll be talking about in a few minutes when we move over to the Phantom, is that his acting skills did not develop between 1976 and 1978, because his delivery of that line, was really no better than any delivery of a line in the Phantom. Yes. I like some of the skits in that. The Rhinestone Trucker, actually kind of funny. I love the one with Pinky in that tight outfit, that's cool. Or still a male of the species. But I think, Detroit Rock City, and you hear it at the end, the crash from the audio track. It's just so lame. Mark, what about you? The first time you saw this, and your overall thoughts of it?
Well, the funny thing is, apparently, because I was, watching this throughout the week, preparing for stuff, because I have it on DVD, and I was talking to my older sister. She's 7 years older than me, and I mentioned to her that we're going to be talking about this as part of the episode, and she reminded me of something that I totally had forgotten about. Well, and you'll see why. Apparently, when this came out in '76, I would have been 3 at this point, and apparently I had watched the original broadcasting because she had lugged me into the living room. She would be watching me and babysit me a lot when my parents were out or working or something, and I apparently watched the whole thing with her. Of course, probably not knowing what the heck I was watching at that point, being 3 years old, right? But apparently I had been quite fascinated by it. I was apparently very quiet and just staring at the screen like lost in space watching this thing. Especially when Kiss came on, she said that I was just like mouth open watching this thing, But years later, my sister again, we lived in an apartment building, and as I started getting introduced to Kiss, we went to one of her friend's place. I think I mentioned this once before. This friend who had all this Kiss stuff in the floor below us, and we went into his place, and he actually had somehow. This is like years later when the videos first started coming out, like the VHS tapes and stuff like that. He had a copy of it at that point, and we watched it again. Then I remember that was the earliest thing of me remembering at least a bit of it, but it was mainly just the Kiss stuff that I saw, because he was always like, the rest of the stuff is crap, and he would fast forward through it and just get to the Kiss stuff, right? It's one of these total cliche guys like you'd see like in Detroit Rock City, the jean jacket with the patches and stuff. So all the other stuff, it just went over his head, right? So, but now, in watching this week, actually, I watched it from top to bottom again, and it's really strange. I had such a vivid flashback of my apartment building when I was watching this, because just the whole feel of the show and that kind of humor from the 70s and stuff, it really reminded me of living back in that apartment building. So not only was it interesting to watch for the Kiss stuff, but I also had such a vivid memory of my childhood because of it. It was kind of cool. I kind of dug it on that aspect, not only because of the Kiss stuff, of course, but because it was such a great thing to have this memory come back of me being young and how early Kiss came into my life. So it was really cool. I liked it. I mean, like you said, there's a lot of skits now when you watch it, you kind of take it with a pinch of salt. It's 1976, so the humor is going to be a little different, right? And but the Rhinestone trucker was really cool. The whole thing with that was funny, and I always liked those segments that they did with the witches. They were always good, and the little midget guy there was bringing out the drinks, and that. All those kind of things. I mean, some of the humor, if you think about it, you probably wouldn't be able to get away with it so easily nowadays with people being so overly sensitive about certain things. You probably wouldn't be able to get away with some of the humor they did then. But it was, for its time, it's a good time capsule of what the 70s, late 70s were probably like, on television at least.
I think you've just hit the nail on the head for what music is in our lives, that it is the soundtrack to our lives, and how when we see something or hear something, it can bring back a memory to a point in time. I mean, that's just fantastic. I mean, nowadays, a show like this would send people running for their safe rooms. I mean, some of the humor, it's still so innocent. They're not effing and blinding like they do on TV these days. But in terms of some of the jokes at the expense of the short fella, you just wouldn't be, the PC police would be coming after you for, which to a certain extent is neither good or bad. It's just, part of the time that it was filmed. But, I loved going through it, and I went off this DVD set, and I have no idea. The downside, and I was asking you guys on the board, it did not include the Hollywood Squares segment, so it doesn't. It's not complete, and I still haven't seen that. So, what could they have done to make this better, do you think? keeping in mind that it was a Paul Lynde Halloween special, not a Kiss Halloween special. I think they balanced it perfectly in terms of introducing them. I always loved the pictures from this set of the band, performing. They weren't. Yeah. It just looks fantastic. They got the glitter balls. They've got pyro. They've got smoke. They've got everything that you expect from Kiss. But it's also the gothic background just really suits the band very well. Joe, I mean, what would you like to have seen, or what do you think was so good about Kiss on there?
Well, what was good about Kiss was exactly what you said. They got Paul Lynde. And I have a lot of respect for him as a comedian. You talk about nowadays, you either have to be really PC or just over the edge and, swearing. And Paul Lynde was humorous for the time because he was clean, but he had this side to him that was edgy. And I enjoyed that type of comedy at the time. And his transition into introducing the band was so cool. It kind of bridged, his era of entertainment to what was happening then with Kiss, and I really appreciated the way he introduced them and put them as part of the act, saying nothing more he wanted than 4 kisses on Halloween and stuff like that. Yeah. And that being said, it was pretty cool. They played Detroit Rock City, King of the Nighttime World, and they had to play their big hit in Beth. And I think they gave him a lot of quality airtime. And yeah, they're the most memorable part of the show. And they moved on stage a lot. They had the explosions. They had everything that was needed to show what the band was all about. And I thought it was pretty cool how they did it for the time.
Yeah, totally agree on all of that. And Ross Radley, who's working on the Magic book, actually shared a layout from his Paul Lynde, kind of the calendar, which just shows how beautiful, his layout for his book, uses the background of that image. And it's just so impressive how it looked. Ken, what are your thoughts on that question?
Well, yeah, they couldn't have done any better, I think, with representing Kiss. I don't know who came up with the idea of the gothic background and the chandeliers and the whole bit, but it just fits the band. I'm almost surprised the band didn't take something like that and try to do something on stage in that sense, castle or do something like that. I think they've had some possibilities designed before, but it never came to fruition. But yeah, they did a great job representing Kiss. As for the other parts of the show, it's the 70s, and I'd have to go back in time and watch it in the 70s to really feel how it felt at the time. I'm sure I would have just felt it was great because it was like other variety shows in a way. You watch Sonny and Cher and whatever, Donnie and Marie. I watched those. I enjoyed those back then.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I would have enjoyed that show had I watched it in the 70s.
I think the only thing again, being a Johnny-come-lately fan from the mid-'80s, would have liked to have seen is them involved in a skit a little bit more than, just the very brief interview segment. Sure. And maybe they had, gone through rehearsals. I mean, I've got all the sheets that, kind of lay out the schedule for rehearsals and whatnot, and it looked like it was just strictly for the music that they were involved in this and weren't considered for any of the skits. But, if you think of later, I think Gene appears on Cher variety show, doesn't he, in a McDonald's skit. It would have been kind of neat to have seen them trying to do something, and maybe then they could have just, figured out, how to do a better job of, acting when it came time for them to do their own TV movie. That's my only kind of critique, is that they're strictly musical guests on this rather than anything else. As for, everything about it being the 70s and kind of understated, and it's so tongue-in-cheek. I mean, it's wonderful. It's like the stuff that you're getting, on records, Aerosmith's Walk This Way, very tongue-in-cheek. You only kind of really get it nowadays, and you're like, how did they get away with that in the 70s? Or Kiss Is Nothing to Lose. I mean, it's just, Paul Lynde is kind of those two songs as a presenter. Mark, what about you? What would improve it for you, if anything?
Well, I think from the Kiss end of stuff, I think they did a really good job. I mean, I think that they represented themselves well. They, I think if you look at it from watching it as a young person, like how I did, I know my reaction was shock watching it. So it must have did the job back then for all the young people who were watching. And I guess that's what they wanted, to reel in people and to get them talking about Kiss. The only thing I could think of, because I did try to do a little bit of homework research on this episode, is that maybe what might have made it better from Paul Lynde's side of stuff in terms of maybe the ratings or stuff like that is maybe to have gotten some of the higher ilk actors at a time, like maybe bringing like Telly Savalas or somebody to do something, or maybe bringing Farrah Fawcett or just people like that maybe would have get them dressed up in some costume and do some skit, you know what I mean? Like, because there's all kinds of people from that time, Charlie's Angels was big in the 70s, maybe you could have had them come in for like a little brief appearance, like just that's the only thing I think they could have did to maybe make that a little bit better. Because I was looking through like who were the big stars of the 70s, and they were saying Telly Savalas, Ricardo Montalban, people like that. They could have did like a little spoof. Where's the the boss, the plane with the little guy there, right? So they could have did
one little person though.
Yeah.
But they could have used him maybe to make it like a little skit, right? To use that little small guy they had there with him, right? But they could have. I just think that would have been maybe the only thing that maybe would have made it a little bit better. Is just getting more of the A-level actor people at the time. Because I know Tim Conway was on there and Betty White and stuff like that. But I mean, really, is Tim Conway as big as some of those people I mentioned, like Farrah Fawcett or somebody like that? I don't know, because I don't remember much of the 70s, obviously, right? So,
Yeah, and
that's the only thing I would say.
Paul Lynde was hardly an A-lister anyway. I mean, there's no A-list on here.
Tim Conway was fairly big because of the Carol Burnett show.
Yeah.
Pinky Tescadero was the Happy Days, the flavor of the month. But Julian, I think you brought up a great point about the tongue-in-cheek aspect of everything, and I think we've lost a lot of that nowadays. I think Steven Tyler's lyrics and Gene Simmons' lyrics and Paul Lynde's comedy had a lot more impact to me and seemed a lot edgier than just come out and saying the F word or And I listen to tons of heavy metal and everything, and when Merciful Fate came out and stuff, and it was shocking, but it was too much. And the tongue in cheek, I think, has a lot more art to it and a lot more impact. So.
Yeah, and that's absolutely what it is. I mean, it's like a joke that loses its humor when you have to explain it. When it's understated and people still get it. Now it's just lazy, that it's so in your face. So it's just so lazy. There's no making your audience think anymore. And at least back then, there would be stuff slipping by the censors and the suits at these stations, whether it was for radio airplay or for TV broadcasts. That now. They're basically just looking for you not to rip someone's clothes off, so the stuff that would get by, I think it's a little bit more cerebral by being understated, and it just shows how dumb we've become, I guess, as consumers of media. So, any final thoughts on Paul Lynde? I got to say, I ripped open the packaging to this, so I just destroyed its resale value. Damn it. Now it's only worth $3.99. So why don't we fast forward to here we are again.
Oh boy,
1978.
Oh man.
And Kiss meets the Phantom of the Park, and I've been on record not being very kind to that. And that's the Cheesy Flicks version, which is just basically, I guess it's a semi-legal distribution of the U.S. broadcast version, I think. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's not like the one that came on Kissology, which is the European or international edit with all the different songs and the different sequences. I went through a phase, obviously, when I was finishing the Gene Peter Paul book last year, that I had to watch this a few dozen times. And that has done me for life. I really... I don't think it has the horror element that really works for a Halloween kind of Kiss special. I think if it was really a Halloween special, it could have been more scary rather than kind of like the comic animatronic animals and creatures, taking them prisoner in the dungeon and all that kind of stuff. So, Joe, I'm going to go back to you as a child of the 70s, and, what's your take on Phantom of the Park as Halloween material?
Something weird happened as a KISS fan over these last few years now, because all of a sudden they became uncool. And I was still a fan because they were the reason I liked hard rock. So I remember going to my cousin's house to watch this, but I was kind of like, I was the only guy that was still, everybody else was getting into other bands. The Judas Priests and AC/DCs were starting to come out, Van Halen, Ted Nugent. So I went and watched it at my cousin's house, and I was really hoping for something cool to, have my friends think they were a great band again, have other guys that were into them. My cousin really wasn't a fan, although he liked hard rock. As a good side note, my cousin actually took the Van Halen album and took the liner and erased their faces and put Kiss's makeup on them and sent the Kiss Army a picture saying that we have reason to believe that Van Halen is Kiss without makeup. And he wanted a ransom and all this stuff. So that's how crazy he was about that. But so we wind up watching this, and it was just so embarrassing. Gene Simmons with his monster voice saying Star Child, and you could tell it wasn't Peter Criss's voice, and it was just really embarrassing. And I think the most embarrassing part for me as the Kiss fan, who became the fan because of Alive, is when they had the evil band play Hotter Than Hell is Rip and Destroy, and they were making fun of the music I actually loved the most. And it was kind of like, the music we used to make sucks, even though it was a couple years before, and the music we're making now is what we are. And I kind of it didn't feel good to be a Kiss fan at that point. So I came away from the movie even more embarrassed being a fan of the band, but I did not stop being a fan.
Do you think they just didn't, make a kind of, if they're making it their full feature broadcast on Halloween, that it wasn't Halloween enough? Or, is it just a victim of the 70s that, that kind of camp factor and what they went for plus their skill just meant that it was never going to be very good and they could never make a good, capture Kiss into a TV show?
It obviously was a mess, and everything you read about it, it was just a disaster. I still, even after I read, I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know what, you talk about Ace and Peter being angry the entire time during filming and taking off and having to get stunt doubles, and Ace's stunt double wasn't even remotely looked like him whatsoever. But why would Gene and Paul agree to go through with this stuff? I don't know. How much drugs was Bill Aucoin doing? I can't figure out what they were thinking, and the explanations. But it's so bad. It really is. And I've watched it again, and I can't even chuckle. I just go, what were they thinking? But the part that really, really perturbed me was when they did the Rip and Destroy, and they were the evil band, and I'm like, you're putting down why I like you, and I still see it that way. So the movie, I don't have good feelings about Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park whatsoever. Just it had that terrible after school special music in the background for dramatic music. It was just awful.
Okay, well, I think what someone really needs to do is replace all that background music with porn music from the 70s and see if it makes it any better. Mark, what about you?
Well, the funny thing again with this is that I remember here in Canada around Halloween, they'd always play it, like in 79, 1980, 81, they'd always play it around that time. And in 1980, again, being babysat by my older sister, we were this time at our apartment, and all her friends came up to our apartment because it was the big gathering of the Kiss people to watch Kiss Meets the Phantom. Now, I remember when they were watching it, the jean jacket dude there again was there, and he apparently was just not impressed at all. Like, he thought it was garbage, and he thought it was terrible. And meanwhile, little 7-year-old me sitting there on the sofa watching and thinking, this is pretty good. I don't mind this, and telling him I think it's pretty good. And one thing that I vividly remember, probably the only thing I remember about watching it back then, is that he told me, he goes, "You're young. In a few years, you'll understand why it sucks." That's what he told me. Like, my sister even reiterated this to me like a few days ago, that he told me that he said, when you get older, you'll understand why this sucked. And for the longest time, I hadn't seen this. Then when I was in hospital, when was this? This was not for anything too serious, but I was over because something to do with diabetes. I was in the hospital overnight for something, and my girlfriend's mom brought me Kissology 2 to the hospital. And I was like, oh, cool, to kind of liven me up a bit. And I opened it, and I saw that they had the movie in there. So I was like, okay, wow, I haven't seen this for like years. So I put it on, and I just remember that I was laughing my ass off in the hospital watching this, because it's supposed to be like a Halloween movie, but there was nothing remotely like scary about this movie at all. It was just so funny watching this, and the fact that it had music from the Kiss solo albums, I thought, for me at least, made it a bit better, because rather than the bad after school music that Joe was just talking about, you at least had music from these solo albums that you could at least palette a bit better, right? So I actually didn't mind it so much. The one thing now, though, in retrospect, after watching this quite a few times, I kind of have to give the band a bit of props for one reason. I was thinking about this from a band perspective. Now, of course, I've been in a few bands, and none of them are as popular, remotely as popular as Kiss, or as busy as Kiss. But I had my fair share of busy times where there was months on end of playing shows and going to Europe, blah, 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 blah. And just to think about doing all those things and how busy your schedule is just doing that. And then on top of it, to be told, guess what, guys, you're going to be now doing a movie now for TV. On top of that, I mean, that's really stressful, and that's really strenuous on somebody to do that. I mean, that's a lot of time that you have to commit, and you've already committed so much of your time touring and doing stuff like that. It's not surprising that some of these guys might have been getting burnt out by this point, and where the conflict might have started from, or why these conflicts were happening, because there's an element of burnout. These guys have been touring nonstop since like 74, but now all of a sudden, when they're maybe affording some time, when they can take some time off because of their popularity, they get thrown into the eye of the storm, and now they have to do a television movie, which, they're not actors. They even said it themselves. What are they doing in a movie like that? But I mean, I can just give them some props and respect for, going forward and doing something like that. And, it must have been difficult, because it's hard enough just touring and going across the world and entertaining people like that, just doing that. And then to be expected to do a movie on top of that, it must have took a little bit of a patience on their part, patience that obviously ran out in some degree.
I think that none of the bands that did stuff in the 70s of this kind of flavor, if you think of Aerosmith playing the band in Sgt. Pepper's, come across very well. None of these rock and roll productions are that good. And I would even go as far, I never got The Wall. I saw that. I was like, no. I was like, you obviously have to do an awful lot of drugs for that to make sense, and I'm not doing it. It ain't going to make sense. Ken, Phantom.
Well, I saw that Phantom when it first aired. I remember it. I guess it was the 28th of October, a few days before Halloween, and I was excited about it. I had just bought the solo albums and that sort of thing, and I was still, just at 77, I was just getting into them. Going back to 77, so I was excited about it at that time, and I watched it, and you know what? At that time, when I first watched it, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the whole movie. I mean, it may have been watching it again over the following years when the VHS came out and so on. Then it was I looked at it like, man, it's not as good as I thought it was. Originally, but when I first saw it, I watched it with my sister. She watched it with me, and we both enjoyed it. And the best parts is, when Kiss was on screen. That was the best parts, and when they were playing on stage, that was the thing that really, I liked the most of all, was them just playing live. So it was good back then when I first saw it. I enjoyed it.
I think when we did the show dedicated to the Phantom, the kind of overall feeling of the group was that the Attack of the Phantoms is a far superior cut to what was on TV in the US. With the integration of the solo album songs, it kind of drew itself together and made far more sense as a 1978 Kiss package than the TV version did with all that bad background music, but I think for Phantom, it is what it is. I hate using that phrase. It really is a child of 1978. I see to a certain extent Bill Aucoin being more interested in his 20% than necessarily being interested in the quality of what was actually bringing that money in. It was an opportunity to get them on national TV, and kind of the ends justified the means of that. It just did not matter because none of them were Oscar-worthy actors anyway. So they were going to ruin a script, whether it was written by whomever or the schmuck who probably ended up writing a lot of it. So it shows a kind of a lack of attention. The one thing I really miss from this, and it doesn't work in terms of the real Kiss timeline because of double platinum coming out in early 78, is that it would have been wonderful to have had a soundtrack album specifically from this TV movie tied in with it, particularly taking those individual songs from the solo albums, that kind of a best of the solo albums, the two songs from each maybe, plus they worked up live versions. I'm looking at some Electric Lady bill sheets here, for Shock Me, Gotta Thunder, Rock and Roll All Night, Black Diamond, Rocket Ride. Obviously, there's the John Tropea acoustic guitar version of Beth, which, if they'd done Strutter 78 earlier on in the year, acoustic Beth later in the year on a compilation would have made sense, and obviously the abomination of Rip and Destroy. So there's plenty of material to kind of have made, and some fans have put together their own unofficial compilations. That's the only thing that really I find missing from this era, is that the original soundtrack should never have been music from The Elder. It should have been music from the Phantom, which I think would have been a missed opportunity for product, because Kiss.
What was most disappointing for me about the movie, though, and this goes back to the rip and destroy aspect. I loved Kiss initially because they were a dangerous band, and at this point, they were officially no longer dangerous because they made this comical movie, and they were fighting their dangerous image. The evil band playing Rip and Destroy. That I perceived that right off the bat, and that's what really disappointed me about Kiss Meets the Phantom. They were no longer a dangerous band at that point, and that was the big appeal to me.
That's a good point.
And doesn't that go back to 76 then, and Mark's, we're going to bring up Destroyer, when they went from leather to costumes, don't they lose the danger once they have strings?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, more and more they're losing their as time goes on, they're becoming more of a comic. So it's becoming more safe, becoming more safe. Though I like your idea. What they should have done in the movie is had the Kiss that was already an imposter Kiss, the other guys, the stand-ins or whatever that is, those were trying to be the good Kiss, but then the actual real Kiss was the evil Kiss. And that maybe would have worked better. I don't know.
I think just having a different script and would have probably worked a bit better.
Yeah, that's probably it.
But in going through lots of TV guides and newspapers and crap like that over the years, one thing I do notice is that this thing has been on TV a hell of a lot, actually. So in the early 80s, 81, 82, the years, I think, Mark, that you were mentioning, the thing was always on late night. I mean, there's barely a week that would go by that it wasn't on in some part of the country. So it was either very cheap, to fill that time slot with it, that it's definitely had an impression. But I think compared to the Beatles or, even the Rolling Stones, it's no Hard Day's Night or, it's more Magical Mystery Tour.
Yeah. Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Heart Club.
Yeah. Not good, but I think Kissology definitely presents it the best that it is. And just going back to Paul Lynde, I think Kissology does not present Paul Lynde very well at all. You get the one song, you get the one part of the interview, and it's really pretty crappy quality. So, Kurt, where's the original film? You sitting on that for some reason?
Right.
Yeah, for everything with Paul Lynde, I would love to see that in crystal clear. I don't know what the story is with the original prints and whether that even still exists or what, because if you think of how beautiful the Phantom looks on Kissology, I would love to see Paul Lynde look that way as well. So why don't we move on from here, unless anyone has any final thoughts on Phantom. And I want to say missed opportunities before we go to some other official Kiss Halloween stuff. And 1982, October, a certain album came out, and I think this is probably the biggest missed opportunity for the band at a time when they needed it the most, but one that is hardly surprising that they missed, considering how screwed up they were, how dysfunctional. They fire Aucoin in April, at the end of April 1982. They're recording the tracks for Killers, which becomes the sessions for this album. And then they're struggling with Ace. They're doing a promo tour, and I just think if they had combined the release of Creatures with a Halloween special in 1982 of some description, a tougher edged one, because obviously they were coming back into their heavy metal glory. They were, basically putting on the black leather again, euphemistically speaking, of course, that they could have done something. But they probably couldn't have done anything because no one wanted to hear about Kiss, unfortunately. But, it's just one of those things. It would have been the ideal time for them to, if they had a manager who had some pull to do something. Thoughts on that? Shoot me down. Tell me I'm an idiot.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, though. I mean, it is such a great idea. And if, like you said, if they would have had somebody who had the capacity to steer the ship correctly, they could have did it. I mean, in one way, when you look at the I Love It Loud video, they're almost kind of hinting at sort of a Halloweenish thing with those kind of possessed people walking at the end of the video there. I mean, if they would have made something based around that, like some sort of a Halloween special based around some kind of like, ghouls or zombies or stuff like that, and have the music from that album as the soundtrack to it, what a way to promote it, like to have some sort of an hour-long thing like that where, Kiss is, whatever, another sort of Phantom of the Park maybe idea, but more up to date at that point. And instead of, the sort of tacky amusement park thing, it could have been something in like in a graveyard or something like that, or in a haunted castle with zombies and demons, and they would have had that music from that album playing, and it could have been a good way to promote the record. I mean, it's a great record, and now, back then it didn't sell well, and now years and years later, everybody loves this record to the point of where they're, focusing on it on a cruise for all things, So obviously its mantle has greatly increased over the last 25, 30 years. So, but I mean, even back then, I think they could have given more legs if they did something like that, which would have maybe boosted the attention of the people and put more eyes onto it, so to speak.
Joe, for you as a Kiss fan, is Creatures a missed opportunity? When you think that we go from 1978 to 1998 without anything Halloweenish from the band?
Well, are we going to touch on the Tom Snyder interview, though? Because that was a Halloween.
Yeah, we will.
So okay, all right. So that, because I think that kind of plays into the Creatures thing, because they were dead. They were absolutely dead when Creatures came out. But it was kind of cool because it was like, I was a freshman in college, and heavy metal was so unpopular on college, and it was like me and a handful of other guys, and Kiss now was in that fold. They were back again with this heavy album, and they were with Iron Maiden and Saxon and all these other bands, and it was like our band again. So as far as a missed opportunity, I don't know really what they could have done at that point because of their lack of popularity. As great of an album as it is, and yeah, it's amazing that they're going to be playing, they're paying tribute to it on the cruise. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking maybe, MTV. I don't know if a network would have even touched them at that point. Maybe they could have done something with MTV. I mean, the theme is there, the cover is there, the music's definitely there, but I don't know what kind of opportunities they even could have missed at that point because they were so uncool at there. And I saw them on that tour. The previous episode I was on with you when we did the Wendy O. Williams. I saw them in that tour, and literally, I mean, it says in Kurt Gooch's book there was 3,000 fans there. There couldn't have been. I mean, and it was that tour where Eric Carr threw a drumstick and went over the crowd and landed on the floor. We all went back. It ran through the drumstick. So yeah, I don't even know if there would be an opportunity for them to miss. I guess that's my point, because they were so unpopular and uncool. But that being said, it was really cool they were back in the heavy metal fold. They were our band again. So they were dangerous again. And that's what the appeal for me was personally.
Yeah, well, you got to remember it was almost like at that point they were rebuilding the thing from the ground up again, right? So in a sense, because of doing that, yeah, I think it would have even made even more sense to maybe have attempted that, to put something on TV. I know they probably would have had to beg and scrape and wash somebody's car or some TV executive's car to get on the air, but it probably would have helped get them back up and rebuild it a little bit quicker if they would have did it. But again, missed opportunity, right?
Yeah, and this is a time when the I Love It Loud video went into medium rotation on MTV, which meant it was getting 1 or 2 plays a day. So, there was just, and that's at a time that there weren't that many videos, so they were hardly getting a whole lot of play, Sorry, I've got stuff going on around me.
Understood.
Ken, any thoughts on that before we step back to the Tom Snyder?
I don't think there's anything they could have done. I mean, they were dead at that point. I don't think anyone wanted to touch them anymore. It was already radio didn't want to touch them, of course, which they never did in the first place. But TV, I don't think was going to touch them, especially after the Elder and things that happened before that. So they were dead in the water. It's possible that had they not fired Bill Aucoin, that maybe he would have come up with something and through his connections got something for them. So I think that could have been a big problem, that they shouldn't have fired him and should have kept him, in my opinion. But and maybe something good would have come out of that. But still, maybe not. It was pretty tough. And like Joe said, Eric Carr threw the drumsticks. I think he threw one out at the one show I was at, and it didn't even make it to us. And Gene Simmons had the drumstick in his mouth, and he was hanging over me. I was right in front of the stage, and he was hanging directly over me with his drumstick in his mouth, right above me, and everyone's reaching up for it, and he dropped it out of his mouth, and everyone. When I thought I was going to get it, I swear, I thought I'm going to get this sucker, and I didn't get it. I was like, everyone just dove. It was something, but that was my opportunity for a drumstick at least. But yeah, they couldn't have done anything.
So let's go to Tom Snyder, and I don't think there's anything better. It has absolutely nothing to do with Halloween, other than it took place on Halloween and was an absolute nightmare. And it's probably the most brilliant piece of Kiss-related TV ever. It's just one of those moments in time, unplanned, except for maybe Ace and Peter, wanting to stick it to the man. It's awesome. It is just awesome. I don't think you can watch that too many times. And if you're really having a bad day, you might as well just watch that and imagine the bad day that Gene and Paul were having, and
Yes.
it's just watching a train wreck. So Joe, take us away on your recollections of that.
Right.
I got to step away for 1 second.
So at this point, Kiss, no one in where I lived liked Kiss except for me, and literally they were called the freaks who liked the hard rock, and then you had the disco guys. There'd be like fights between the rock guys and the disco guys. Well, my favorite band comes out with a disco album. So where am I? It put me. I was on an island as a Kiss fan. So anyway, I find out they're going to be on Tom Snyder. I had a TV in my bedroom, and I stayed up, had it underneath my cover. I had one of those little TVs and watched it, and I just was amazed because I was such an Ace Frehley fan. I thought it was just so cool that Ace was the guy talking and laughing with Tom Snyder. And I really, when I watched it the first time, I didn't pick up so much on how Gene was. I mean, I just thought Gene was trying to be intelligent and smarter than everybody else in the room. Paul really didn't give me an impression whatsoever. Peter, I thought it was, I thought he showed a little personality too, and he talked about his gun collection. Now, subsequently, as Julian has said, I think between this and the Kobo show, I've watched this and the Kobo show most out of all Kiss footage. I can't get enough of this, and I have dissected this. The personalities, just the fact that Ace Frehley was lit up and just rip-roaring, and it's interesting because now I don't find him as funny as I did originally because you realize how lit he is. And then, Peter Criss is sticking it to him by talking about his gun collection.
Yeah.
And then you could see Paul, and after reading Paul Stanley's book and how he doesn't know how to fit in the group dynamic. The makeup is actually coming off at this point, and you see the real personalities. But man, Gene Simmons, so uncomfortable. I still watch it to this day, and I still feel so uncomfortable watching Gene Simmons and the way he reacts to everything. When Peter says he has a gun collection, and
not real guns,
toy guns,
toy guns, yeah.
And Tom Snyder asks him about his hobbies. Oh my God, the hobbies. And Paul Stanley says he wants to be a crime fighter. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? The drunk guy is making more sense than you two because you're so uncomfortable. I just find this to be such fascinating footage. I don't get enough of it. I watch it at least once a month. It's a guilty pleasure. I have to watch this interview because of the personalities of my favorite band and how uncomfortable Gene Simmons is, how awkward Paul Stanley is. And it's just, I think it's a work of art. I really do. And it must for any Kiss fan to watch. And that's where I come out of it. Yeah. So
it's just impossible not to just say exactly what you've just said, Ken. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I watched it on Halloween night. It was after coming back from. I had the Gene Simmons makeup on actually that night, right. When I saw it, and then came back home and watched it. I think it was my mother, and it was like I was just transfixed on the TV, and I thought Ace. I didn't realize he was drunk at the time because I didn't know. I never seen him in interviews or anything before that, so I didn't know what he was like. But I wasn't expecting him to be like the spokesman of the band when he's kind of overriding everything that Gene and Paul are doing. So I would expect Gene and Paul to be talking the most, but it was just. It was just crazy, though. I thought Gene, was kind of trying to be in character, for the demon, because that's why he looked so pissed, but it wasn't because he was trying to beat a demon. It's because he was really pissed. The most part, he kept saying to Tom Snyder, "Oh, you having a good time, Tom Snyder?" And Tom Snyder's like, "Huh? Yeah, I'm having a good time." It's because Gene wasn't having a good time. He said that. The only lighthearted moment for Gene on there was when he said, he says as he sees a live human being on the floor. I guess there must have been a bug or who knows what, roach or something running across the ground, and they all cracked up. But yeah, I can watch that thing over and over. It just cracks me up. I never get tired of it.
I wonder if Gene and Paul can watch it. Mark.
Well, I didn't watch it when it originally first came out. Obviously, I was still pretty young. But getting it and watching it now, in retrospect now, it's just like what all of you have said. It's hilarious. It's funny. It's, uncomfortable. It's all those things at once when you watch it. And again, watching it from a band perspective sort of thing, I know that there's been times when being in a band dynamic too, where you've had something like that happen too, where you're in a situation maybe on radio or something, and then one of the guys starts going off on a tangent about something, and you just start covering your hand, putting your face in your hand, and going, "What the hell is he doing?" Like, and you just want to go over there and smack him, right? So I can kind of relate to Paul and Gene's sort of uncomfortable feeling when something like that happens. But you know what? I mean, I think that you just have to take those kind of things in stride. I mean, this is a band that was under ultra pressure, and maybe a situation like that was just what Ace needed to kind of cool off for a minute. Drink a bottle of vodka or whatever it was with Bill Coyne there,
and
it made for an interview that we're still talking about today. So did it do its job? Oh, hell yeah! I mean, it's kept Kiss being talked about for a long time afterwards. I mean, and I really love watching it too. I mean, it's just so comical. It's too bad that the version of it on the Kissology is not the full version of it, but you can still watch the full one on YouTube. They have clips of it everywhere on there, so it's easy enough to watch it. But I mean, it's just the kind of television that nowadays you would almost hope you could see sometimes. I'd love to see an artist go on a late night TV show and go on a complete waiver like that and just come out completely tanked and see what happens. I mean, I'm sure it's probably happened in the last 20 years. There's maybe been somebody who's come on who's been wasted like that, but I think Ace made the blueprint for something like that.
They're never wasted. They're always dehydrated now.
Yeah. I think there are a couple Letterman episodes that the Jerry Lawler, Andy Kaufman, and then the one with Phoenix, Joaquin
Phoenix.
Yeah. And then there's so a couple Letterman ones came close to this, but yeah.
This is just legend. I mean, you've got the Sex Pistols on evening TV with Bill Grundy swearing.
Granada.
Right? Fucking rata. And then you've got, just imagine if this had been during prime time. I mean, this was pretty late night, so... in terms of those who actually got to see it at the time, it was probably a much smaller audience. But just imagine if this had been in prime time. It would have been up there for the most notorious moments in television history with the Pistols, just because. And I think if it had been in prime time, Gene and Paul would have been freaking out even more. So just imagine what could have been from that perspective. But and it's going to take the cake. That is the Halloween nightmare for Kiss, is the Tom Snyder show, and nothing else can ever be as scary, as horrible. Just watching two guys who I think most fans do care about, Gene and Paul, suffer.
Why, Julian? Why would Paul Stanley say he wants to be a crime fighter? That was the most bizarre. I think that was the strangest part of the whole thing.
Because he couldn't run away from where he was. He was. I think it's a freak out. I mean, when you're under pressure, you say some pretty odd things, and I think that is him just having a breakdown and I want to be a crime fighter and run away from here as fast as I can. Is there someone I can go save? I'm coming.
And I believe Tom Snyder makes fun of him after he
does.
He gets a little jab at him after he says that.
Mm-hmm.
But that takes the cake. Yeah,
he's merciless. So why don't we move on? Just to let you know what was going on with my background noise. Yeah, I love it when you buy something on eBay. It turns out to be signed by Gene. So
nice,
yay,
awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, because everyone wants the Singapore edition of that fucking album.
Well done. Well done.
All right, so let's move on to, I guess it's the Halloween weekend 1998 and everything that's tied into
awesome.
Psycho Shithouse. And
awesome.
You know, Mad TV, I don't remember if I taped those because I was at the Dodger Stadium show actually seeing the band rather than sitting at home watching TV. You know, I don't remember much of the Mad TV being anything that appealed to me. And I don't think I've been back since to watch it. But what else was Millennium, wasn't it, that week?
Oh, Millennium, yeah.
Yeah.
And that one, obviously I've got that season DVD set, I think is actually really cool. I loved Paul Stanley in that, playing, I guess, the director who gets all slashed up. Ace and Peter were the cops, and I don't remember what Gene was.
Yeah, I don't remember what Gene was either.
Yeah.
Is that Mad TV, Mark?
Yeah.
That's Mad TV.
I thought we were going to the Dodger Stadium. That's
It was all part of the same night.
You know,
Okay.
they broadcast some of the show on the radio. Later on the radio because you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I watched it. I watched Mad TV, and then after that, they had the simulcast type thing on the. It must have been on the computer, right? Internet, and I watched the beginning. I don't know how much they showed of the Dodger Stadium show, but I watched it. I was watching it from my computer, all on that same night. I had watched it. It might have been the same time as Mad TV. I can't remember, but either I recorded Mad TV or I watched Mad TV and then watched the Dodger Stadium thing. But the Mad TV was I enjoyed all the Kiss segments. I mean, they had never done anything spots like that before, with them being like these life-size dolls, where he crushes the other kids. You know, they crush the other kids' dolls, and then the mother wants to take Paul Stanley from the kid. And use him for her pleasure later on. And then the best segment I probably was maybe the segment between Kiss and the Michael Jackson battle scene too. There's the other scene that Mark's showing about there's supposed to be lifelike figures. You pull the string and then something happens. So it was all good. I enjoyed it.
I've never watched that.
You never watched it?
No, I didn't even watch it to prepare for this show because you know what, I was at Dodger Stadium, so that is my Halloween. I just never went back and saw that. So
yeah, he spits the blood on the kid's face. It's hilarious, but I mean, it was good. Something different for Kiss, and they got some more exposure for them. You know?
And that really is the key for me. That whole thing surrounding, you know, Psycho Circus was really a pretty cool time. You know, they're on TV on a TV show. They had the Mad TV, even though I didn't watch it. They had the simul view of the show. They had the radio show of the concert. They had the Smashing Pumpkins dressed up as the Beatles 64 at the concert and the circus that night. So that was a pretty good Halloween. Simple for me because it's the only one of the ones that we've talked about today that I actually am a participant in. So, yeah, a Kiss concert on Halloween in a pretty unique situation. Cool. The only time I'll ever be in Dodger Stadium. It's pretty good. Joe, what's your take on that whole?
So the Mad skits, and I didn't even go back and watch them. I do remember the Michael Jackson thing, but I was blown away by the live Psycho Circus because the album and you've gone over this. The album's lame, but the song "Psycho Circus" is one of my favorite Kiss songs. So I just thought the live aspect of it just blew me away. And Kiss was happening again, and I just thought it was so cool. That being said, then I went and listened to the rest of the show on the radio, and the set list was really good. But I want to hear more from you, Julian. What was it like to be there? What was it like? What were the Smashing Pumpkins like? What was the atmosphere like? Because just that seeing them play Psycho Circus, I thought was awesome. So I would really like to hear what it was like to be there live.
Well, after 4 beers, it was very fun to be there live. That was my first time traveling for a Kiss show, and that was actually my first ever live show. If you think the guy who runs the FAQ will have seen every tour going back to 1974, no, wrong. I did not get to see the band until Halloween night 1998, so I was losing my cherry at the same time as seeing them. But my seats were so shit, I never got to my seat. I just stayed in a walkway around the back because I was just so far. I had a great view of the Circus. And the guy riding the motorbike around, and then you had the infield or outfield or wherever the hell it was, I don't remember. They were performing in the outfield, I think, and it was just so far away. Smashing Pumpkins came on, and I was like, I've never heard any of their shit. Who the hell are they? What are they dressed up? And so, no, they're dressed up as the Beatles 64. I'm like, well, they're not the Beatles.
Chicago band, come on.
Simple as that. So I wasn't into the Pumpkins, never have been. They didn't do anything for me as an opening band. What struck me, though, I was still pretty fresh off the plane from Scotland, was how fucking big Dodger Stadium was, and just how massive the whole production was that night. And I was just blown away more by the fact that I was there finally at a Kiss concert, getting to hear Psycho Circus live for the very first time, Into the Void and Within, and they played Nothing to Lose that night, and I think I Was Made for Loving You, which didn't survive into the tour, those two.
I think they did. She also?
Yeah, I think it was She and Nothing to Lose. I don't recall. I'm not going to look up the set list, but it's that much of a blur.
Being that far away, did they try to do the 3D that far?
Yeah, do you have the glasses on?
I didn't bother with the fucking glasses. I was so far away. It was a pointless exercise, and also
1D.
I'm sorry, everything's 3D. It's just stupid to me. And I never did Jaws 3D either. So I'm just a killjoy when it comes to that. I was so far away that I could barely see the screens, so it wouldn't have mattered. And I remember Paul fucking around with the camera, and it just looked so awkward and dumb that I was just more interested in the music. That was what it was about for me. It was about the music. It was about the show. What is, the new tour going to look like? What's the set going to be like? What are they going to be, doing? Are there going to be any new gimmicks? And a bunch of the people I guess I was around at the time, went to the day before rehearsal and show. So, it was all kind of wrapped up in that. So, for me, it was just everything that you would want your first Kiss concert to be, a historic occasion, because that's essentially what it was. The first night of a tour is always a special occasion because you never know how it's then going to adjust afterwards. And they didn't go on tour, I think, for 2 weeks afterwards. So it was just special. Got to meet a lot of cool people as well. It was all the KAOL, the Kiss Army Online guys from AOL back then, and just awesome, absolutely awesome. And I don't remember that much. I look back now at that show on Kissology, and it's one of my favorite parts on the whole Kissology series, just because when you're a part of it, it brings back those memories, or it is those memories, because those brain cells are long since burned.
Yeah, it's interesting though that you bring that up, because there's 2 concerts I can think of off the top of my head that I went to. One was a Metallica one where they had Danzig and Suicidal Tendencies opening here in something called Molson Park, which is huge, like 70,000 people in this outdoor thing. And then I saw Aerosmith, Metallica, Warrant, and Black Crowes at the CNE grandstand, and that was another huge thing. And that was for the And Justice for All tour for Metallica. So they were really, really big at that point. And it was, and I was in one of those positions too where I was so far back that when I saw the drummer through binoculars from Suicidal Tendencies hit his snare drum, I saw him hit it, and then I heard the snare like a second later. Like, that's how far back I was from it. It was like, I barely could see anything. But those kind of shows are more for the vibe. There's so many people there. You can meet people. It's like a gigantic, like, outdoor field party almost, Like, if you're going there just to expect to see every little nuance of the show, forget it. You're not going to do that. But if you're there to have a good time, hang out with people, hear some great music really loud, I mean, that's what it was more about. And I'm guessing that's more what it was like for you, Julian, to have, like, just like to experience the environment and the surroundings of that show, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, come on. How many stadium shows have they done in the United States? Simple as that. I mean, it wasn't 1976, so it wasn't Roosevelt Stadium or Anaheim, but I was in a bowl in a stadium with KISS in the U.S. I mean, Tiger Stadium. I mean, there's probably only a few others, in their history to have been part of what was it, I think 40,000 all told there. There's not a lot of KISS fans, I guess, who get to say that they were a part of an audience that large. And I'd much rather say that I got to see KISS with 40,000 other fans than, say, someone who saw the Creatures tour and called out for pizza for everyone.
Yeah.
No, don't get me wrong. I would rather see the Creatures tour, but in terms of the audience, I'd rather be there with a bunch of maniacs than a band kind of breathing its death sigh.
Yeah, that show, Julian, that's the one where they got stuck in traffic on the way back to the hotel, right? And they got out of their limousine or whatever it was, and they actually walked back to the hotel with the other people that had makeup on. A lot of people thought that they were just guys dressed up like KISS, even though it was the real KISS, and they weren't even bothered. They just walked down the back to the hotel.
I don't remember that much. I remember taking a ride, and I seem to remember like the neighborhood was a bit barrio, and stuff getting thrown at the cars as they were driving up to Dodger Stadium. And I guess maybe they had the wrong team stickers on their bumpers or something. I don't know whether that's a figment of my imagination, but I was like, holy shit. And then getting back to the hotel, and it was just crazy. So that's one of the standout memories for my personal history. But happy Halloween.
So, being a guy from Chicago, I have to say, so I do like Smashing Pumpkins for the most part, but live they're never good. So I was just wondering what they were like dressed as the Beatles opening up. I'm sure they didn't make much of an impression that night.
No, for someone who didn't know anything about the Smashing Pumpkins and still doesn't, all I thought was, oh, that's neat. Getting into the Halloween spirit, dressing up as, the Beatles. I mean, that's cool. Simple as that. That the music, I didn't know any of it. I mean, it's like me going to a fucking Bruce Springsteen concert. I just sit there and fall asleep because I don't know any of the crap he's playing. It was the same thing with the Pumpkins. Number one, I wasn't there to see an opening act. After I got over the kind of, oh, look, they have a circus. Oh, how are they going to take that on the road? That's not going to work.
Yeah.
So where was the circus?
It was, and people can who were there and had less beer to drink than me can correct me. I think it was around home plate, in the infield. But from my perspective of where I was on a baseball field, having gotten off a plane from Scotland earlier in the year, I'm just not going to be able to tell you. It was opposite to where the band was. I seem to recall. So I've never seen any really good photos from that night either. I mean, that's one thing that's really missing. The whole layout. You look back through old issues of like Billboard or some newspapers, and you'll get to see Anaheim and that whole stadium absolutely packed, with the high wire guy doing his thing above it. You don't get any of those shots of Dodger Stadium from Psycho Circus.
You get quite a bit of Tiger Stadium too from the reunion, but yeah.
Do you know what though? I'm very surprised about that. That Kiss don't even have pictures of that. And the reason why I'm surprised about that is because this essentially was Gene Simmons' Kiss World idea come to life finally years and years after the fact. And of course, just like but they told them back then in '79 that there's no way in hell we could have this thing go on tour with them. It never went on tour with them this time either. But at least they got to erect it once, right? Because I know that's in that book that Chris, what's his name?
Lent.
Yeah, that wrote. There was a huge chapter on that whole thing, how they wanted to do the traveling amusement park, and there it is, right before your eyes. And I'm surprised they never took pictures of it, because for all the time that they were pushing to do it back then, why didn't they take pictures of it and show everybody, you know?
Well, that might be why. They did take pictures of it, and then they saw, oh my God, this does not work. I mean, who knows? It'd be interesting from a fan perspective. They must have had photographers. They must have had people with, photo passes, taking lots of shots. And there must be a reason why there just aren't that many from that night. That maybe they just said, this is not a good idea. Sorry, Gene. Nice try. We gave it a shot. We can't take this on the road. Just.
Hopefully that'll be in Ross Radley's book.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
He found some pictures. So.
Be interesting to see what he comes up with for that, because it was impressive, but it was odd. It was kind of an uncomfortable melding of the different arts. I would just rather whoever stole the Peter camera feed from that show return it, because I would love to see that show restored to its full glory and actually have the proper Peter camera. Yeah. In it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about other possibilities for Halloween and Kiss. I think the cruise is the obvious one, and they're going to do it this year. And I guess they've been doing Halloween for the cruise for the most part over the past, 5 years. So, but Creatures of the Sea, Creatures of the Night, is just like so obvious now. So I'm glad they're doing that, and I'm really looking forward to getting reports from people when they get back from the cruise of how the band really kind of gets into the Halloween theme with the Creatures of the Night side of things this year. So I think this is probably going to be the last of the kind of Halloween related Kiss things in terms of theme. Any thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously Halloween, you always see people now dressed as. I've gone as Paul Stanley 4 times. I don't know why not the other characters, but I went as Paul 4 times on Halloween. So you always see the people dressed up as Kiss characters on Halloween now. But yeah, it seems like the cruise is something that's a staple of their corporation, and it's done all around Halloween. I can't wait to hear what they do on this and see the footage. I'm really interested to see how Tommy Thayer, if he's going to just wear the jumpsuit with the lightning bolt going down it, what he's actually going to wear on stage, and what Eric's going to wear too. Eric Singer, is he going to wear Eric Carr's old costume? Because that was Fox related. So I'm interested to see what kind of costumes they're going to wear on the cruise. But it seems like that's their way to move forward on Halloween, aside from selling merchandise related items. Yeah, I think that's where they're going.
Ken, how about you?
Yeah, the only other Halloween thing besides that, maybe that their next opportunity, if any, would be their final performance for Kiss. If they're going to end it and say, this is it, guys. Yeah, they could do it on Halloween night. They could make it a Halloween night thing. Like I said before, Central Park, something like that. So that's about it. Nothing else. I can't think of anything else that they can do for Halloween.
Mark.
Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Kiss is just an exemplification of Halloween. I mean, they're in makeup all the time, and when you see Kiss, it's like Halloween coming to your town that day. And it's funny you mentioned, Joe, that you were Paul 4 times. You said you got dressed up as Paul. Yes. Out of all the times that I went out dressed up as a Kiss member for whatever reason, and I don't understand why this always happened, but I always ended up being Peter. I mean, I'm a guitar player, and I never went out as Ace or Paul. I was always as Peter for some reason. But, it was always fun to go out and to do that. Having the older sister, again, that was also into the graphic arts, who was also like a amazing, artist who could do the makeup like perfectly. It was fun to get my friends over and we could go out and everybody was like, "Oh, that looks great!" When we came out to get candy and stuff like that. So it was, for me, Kiss is Halloween. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what more they can do to give me that feeling of Halloween, because, even older merchandise and stuff like that, it just seems like anything that you get from the store from them would work well in Halloween, even their Christmas ornaments that I have, some of them, they look like they would be better used for Halloween than for Christmas, So I think Kiss is just the perfect band to, give you that Halloween feeling. I'm very curious as well to see what's going to happen with this cruise, because I keep hearing things and, people saying that, they heard Gene interview saying that they're going to do the complete album on the cruise, which I find unbelievable to believe, because there's no way I think Paul could sing some of those songs now. But people swear they heard it from Gene's mouth, but that doesn't mean necessarily it'll be true, right? So, but I'm curious to hear and to see what they do with it. Just like Joe said, like, what are they going to wear? Is Tommy going to wear those ridiculous sneakers like Ace had in that time too, with that lightning outfit there, and it's just, it's fun having this kind of a situation where you don't know for certain what's going to happen. And, and you don't have those kind of experiences with Kiss much anymore now. So I'm kind of enjoying it now while I can, to just, have a little bit of a head scratcher and see what happens.
And that's going to be an episode that's coming up. So, that is our little trip through, the Halloween special that Kiss has been involved in. I deliberately did not mention Gene Simmons' Trick or Treat. I try not to mention any of his individual acting efforts, just out of kindness, really. But we'd love to hear your thoughts on what is your favorite, Kiss Halloween-related episode, or those things that you got to enjoy for the first time. Joe.
I'd like to say one thing. Everybody out there, and Marcus, if you have it, do you have the Odyssey book with you?
Yeah.
Can you show it? Everybody out there, you gotta read this book. If you're a Kiss fan, get this book. It's amazing, Julian. I commend you for the work. I hope you guys do a show on it, because it's just it's a great book. So if you want to call yourself a Kiss fan and you don't have the book, get the book and read it. That's all I have to say.
Joe, Tim and I totally appreciate your kind words on that. Obviously, labor of love, a lot of interviews. Who knows what we're going to do with it? We appreciate everyone who's supported it, have loved it.
Man, I'll interview you. If you want to do a book signing, I'll help organize it. Whatever you got to do, but it's just a fantastic piece of work. It's up there with Chris Len's book, as far as I'm concerned.
Hey, that's high praise indeed. All right, folks. So let's end on that happy note. Thank you very much. I'll have a smile now. So, episode 95 is in the can. Join us on Facebook, on the FAQ message board, Spreaker, or wherever you watch, and leave your comments about the episode, what you liked, what we missed. Did we miss anything Halloween related in your opinion? It's all part of the conversation. We thank you for listening. Yeah, true. Yep. And we will see you next time. Thank you for spending time listening to the Kiss FAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the Kiss FAQ message board and discuss the topic we've broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.